Hello, welcome to HR Insight with SN. Today we'll be discussing confiding in your HR. Is it safe or it is a recipe for disaster? And our guest is no other person but Damilola Adebayo. She's currently the head human resources of Main Street Capital Limited. You're welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for how long have you been in the HR space and what has your experience been like?
I've been in HR for 8 years. HR wasn't my first love. I was just thrown into it. I started as an intern for about almost a year, and that's why I fell in love with HR. And over the years, I realized that HR was a lot much more than I started out with. Things are improving, things are evolving, and it's something to look forward to.
Oh, okay. Wow. You were thrown into it. Okay, so why is confidentiality important in human resource space?
Okay, in HR today, confidentiality is one of the key ingredients to improving employee engagement. I will say that because for an employee to be engaged, he needs to have loyalty towards the organization. And for the employee to have such loyalty, he needs to know that the company as a whole has his back, if I may use that word. He also needs to know that the company won't use his information inappropriately. And in this case, being the HR, who is the custodian of most employee information. So if a staff knows that his information is kept and only used at appropriate times, his mind will be at rest that he is working in a place that he can be loyal to, and then he'll put his all in the business. So let me give you a scenario. So someone comes into the organization and finds out that information that is supposed to be kept confidentially with HR is known to everybody. And maybe the week before, he already told the HR manager that maybe he has a particular ailment. Some ailments don't necessarily affect job.
Provided it's not contagious.
Yes, provided it's not contagious. But he finds out that the HR manager is a CNN Africa. Then he knows that he's actually scared because he feels like his information will be everywhere. And he's working, every time he's working, he has flashes in his face that, what if the HR manager has told my Oga that this is what's going on? Or what if the HR manager told so and so, who is my colleague, that I'm not comfortable having such information with? So information received from employees should be used appropriately. I'm not saying that HR should be tight-lipped on all information given to her or him. Usually when information comes, it's your job to filter and see how much you can divulge, but not even divulge to everyone, maybe to the management. Of course, they're the owners of the company. There's some information that they should be aware of. There's some that you don't divulge. There's some you withhold. And there's some that you take permission from the staff themselves to say, this that you brought to me, I cannot solve it. The only person that can solve it is so and so. Do I have your permission to mention this issue? Even though I promise to keep your name out of the picture. Just let the person know that this is an employee that is having these issues. So that way, the employee knows that my HR manager is doing everything within his or her power to ensure that I have the right supports and the necessary information or supports, to carry out my tasks and my daily duties. And that way, of course, I will be committed to that type of organization. My engagement will be very positive within the organization. I won't want to leave. So I won't say the responsibility doesn't just lie on the HR manager, right? Of course, it's the HR manager's job to coach other line managers, right? To ensure that the employee themselves feel safe within the organization. Once they feel safe, then you're ready to get their best at their jobs.
So how would managers or HR managers handle situations where the employee divulges sensitive information to the HR manager? And obviously, maybe the employee doesn't really know if it's going to affect the business positively or not, right? But the HR manager thinks or feels that I need to communicate or divulge this information to the executive management. And the employee doesn't give consent for that. Don't you think that is a dicey situation? What do you think the manager should do at that point?
So there are many ways around it, right? One, the HR manager can take a survey. If one person voices out to say one thing, at least 3 or 4 other people have the same sentiments. It's not something that one person will just come up out of the blues and come and say, except if it's maybe a sexual harassment. Even sexual harassment, it's not only one person that will go through it. At least 2 other people are facing that same issue, right? Or in the past, maybe some other people have. So it's not a singular issue. So what the HR manager can do is to do a survey, whether something affecting it, if it's something affecting the industry, he or she can take the information from the industry and take it to management for solution without pointing anything within the organization. So the owners of the company don't think that there's anything coming from within. It's an industry thing that needs to be adopted into the system so as to keep your staff. Or you can do a survey within such that it looks like it is everybody that has the same issue. And as such, the management knows that they need to solve this issue because it's critical to employees. Then there's also the part where it's only the employee that's having that issue. Your first point of call is to attend to that issue without, of course, having to talk about it to people. If it's beyond you, is when you can now have to bring people. You can even bring an external person, maybe a counselor, or you can, because most HMOs these days have a package where you can talk to a therapist, a counselor. If it's something that's significant, yes, you can refer him to somebody or like that.
Provided it doesn't affect work or
provided it doesn't affect work or productivity. It's not everything you take up to management, but there are some serious issues that you always have to either you couch it in being in information from your external sources, or you couch it as being the whole organization. You just have to find a solution to the problem.
Okay, so how can HR managers be more approachable? Because there are some that are really uptight. Like, once they assume that position, they will just declare, I'm for the executive management, I'm for the management, I'm not for employee. In such a situation, what do you think? What's your advice to the employees?
To the employees or to the manager?
To both employees and then managers, because really, either ways, it will most definitely affect business.
Okay, I will start with the manager. For the manager, I think that the person doesn't understand the job that he's cut out for. You need to understand the role that you're playing. This means that aside supporting the company, management themselves, you also need to support the employees, because what you're employed for is to drive performance. How do you drive performance? By supporting the business in your role as the HR manager. So, but once you understand that, then you know that you have to reach out to the people. You need to have your ears on ground, right? You need to know what's going on and how you can transform those things into and generate them into numbers. You have to crunch the numbers to ensure that, or to make sure that you generate revenue. How do you do that? You need to know what's going on. There can be fire somewhere, you will know. You just think that, oh yeah, the guy, you only work for management, and people are already planning. There's a tsunami of resignations waiting for you that you don't know. Like maybe 5 people in one department, 10 people in another department waiting, and then they slam your desk. What do you want to do? What do you want to start from? You need to know. You need to have grassroots information about. You need to have people's personal information. You need to have people's family background. What some people might even be having issues at home that is affecting their performance. You also need to have track record of people's performances where you know that this person has been a high flyer. What happened? What made the person drop? Is the person having peer-to-peer pressure, or what are the issues? So you need to have this information. This is the same information that will help you, that you will take back to the management to help improve performance. So how do you now eventually become approachable? It's not done overnight, right? If you had been the uptight person from the beginning, it's not done overnight. It's something that it's built over time. Credibility is built over time. People need to know that they can trust you. So one thing you need to do is to become approachable, right? You don't go into people's private life. I once had a boss who, because she wanted to be approachable and she wanted people to trust her, kept on asking questions. How are you? Do you have a boyfriend? That's too direct. You can't get the answer you're looking for directly. But take the person out to lunch and just, what are the challenges you're facing at work? How can I support you? They might not tell you what their personal issues are, but that's a start. Yes, it's a start. And eventually the person knows that when they have issues at work, the first point of call is to come to you. Eventually, when they have personal issues, they will tell you. So it's a step, it's a process. So you need to become approachable. How do you become approachable? I just give an example. There are many other things you can do to become approachable. When there are engagements, when there are staff engagements, activities like TGIF, sports, anything, don't just sit in one corner and say, I'm the boss here. Engage, join them in those activities. Eventually, they will relax. Once they relax, then they can now open up to you and tell you what the issues are. You need to be honest. So you can't go about giving people different information. People are asking you, how many leave days am I entitled to? You tell one person 5 days. They're on the same level, same rank, same, they resume same day. They have similar experiences within the organization. So you tell one person 5 days, you tell the other person 10 days, you tell that one 8 days. Then that means you're not credible. Your information is not consistent over time. So you need to be honest. You need to be open. You need to tell people the truth. Places where you don't know what the answer is, tell them you don't know. However, you would take the conversation upwards and you bring back the solution, or you tell them you get back to them. The third thing you need to also do is to know what your policies are. Even if you are not the one that builds the policies, maybe you resumed, you already had a policy. The first thing you need to do, what I did when I resumed in one of the places I resumed in my workplace, what I did, I familiarized myself with the policies and I changed some things based on best practices. You can't keep doing the same thing that they're doing in 1976. It worked for them in that period. It can't work for you now because now we have lots of millennials at work, right? So you need to your time needs to be flexible. If every time, every day, the only thing you're bothered about is attendance, who comes late and who comes early, then you need to check your priorities. Your priority is to drive performance. Back to what I was saying, you need to know your policies. You can't give people advice, you can't counsel them without knowing the policies. If you know the policies, then you can now prefer something out of the policy that you know is on a case by case basis, right? Not that it's every time somebody comes to meet you with an issue, you bend the law, you go behind the policy. If every time you go behind the policy, then people know that your policy is not credible. They can always do whatever they like. But yes, there are laid down policies that you need to follow, but there's some things that you need to take outside that you need to make decisions outside that. When you need to, people know that the reason why you did this was because of this case. It was a peculiar case and it was something that needed to be done. So the three things I said: one, you need to be honest. When you don't know what to do, tell them, let them know that you're human. You don't know everything, right? And then you take it upwards. Second thing I said is you need to know your policies. Third thing I said is that you need to be open. You need to be open to knowledge. People need to know that they can teach you as well. Because like I said, you don't know everything. You need to be open to knowledge, open to information, open to talking. Even if you have issues that are not so deep, challenges that you faced at work that you think that you can talk about. Yes, talk about it. Oh, when I was in so, I had this challenge and this was how I overcame it. Yes, I got into trouble, but I came out of it stronger. That way people know that you're not a machine.
So it's more like taking a fall for an employee or something.
Not necessarily. There's sometimes that you have to take a fall for the employee because, of course, information that the person has given to you is confidential.
You're one HR manager. I'm hearing this wrong.
Sometimes you have to, but sometimes you also have to let the employee know that this thing that the person has done isn't in the policy, and these are disciplinary actions that we're taking. I don't have issues against you, but these are the issues that need to be resolved. If it's not done, then we are condoning indiscipline within the system. So, yeah.
What you're saying is that it's safe to actually, to an extent, to share personal information with your HR manager.
Yes.
How would you strike the balance when it comes to also your line manager? Because your line manager and the HR manager, they are kind of strategy partners, right? And let's assume that we are all humans. We understand what happens in workplace. So you have a line manager that is not in good rapport with the HR manager. And as the subordinate in that particular department or SBU, whenever your line manager sees you with the HR, there is this...
like the defenses are up.
Yes, right? And vice versa. So what would be your advice in such a situation?
I can think of many scenarios. There are many ways around it. But first thing is you need to understand the environment that you're in. If your environment is an environment that encourages people to talk, then you can speak up. If your environment is an environment that people just keep quiet and allow things go their way or go a certain way, then you need to subtly find ways to find solutions to your problem. The first point of call for an employee is the employee's manager, not even HR manager. Your line manager is your first HR manager before you now go to the supposed HR manager. You have an issue, work, personal, somebody is coming late. I expect the person to tell his boss, not tell me. Why are you telling me that you're coming late? I don't know how many meetings you have for the day. Yes, it's okay to tell me to document it, but I expect that your line manager should be the first person to know about these issues that you're facing. Or you had wardrobe malfunction, you had, there are different things that can happen. The line manager knows how many people he has in his unit. He has maybe 10 people in the unit. He knows each person individually, even more than the HR manager does, because he has their records. I'm not even talking about personal issues or personal records, not family background, not anything. But at some point, he will know. Maybe your wife gave birth last week. He will remember. The next year, he already knows that you have one child, even if he doesn't know how many children that you have. But I expect that even the line managers should also take time to get to know their staff. The HR's job in this case is to coach the managers, to put them through, support them. If a staff has issues and the line manager comes to tell the HR, it's the HR's job to tell the line manager, to coach or support the line manager on how to go about that situation. Not every time coming to the HR. That means the staff already knows that his boss is useless, in quotes. Yeah. So I always have to go to HR if I want to get anything done. I go straight to HR. If the situation is that when he knows that his boss is not credible as such, and he knows that whatever he tells his boss, somebody else will hear about it. Some people can't skip information. Which is why I said when you get into a space, you need to understand the type of culture, the type of environment, type of person you're reporting to. Is this somebody that can keep secrets? Is this somebody that you can confide in? Is this somebody that that will have your back? If not, then you need to find people. So there are other managers within the system that you can talk to that will not necessarily go to your own manager and say, did you hear what your staff said about you? No, they will try and find solutions. So that's two things. One, I said, is to find out, to understand the environment. Second is when you realize that your manager is, in quotes, useless. You find another manager. If you cannot go to the HR manager, usually the next point of call is to go to HR. Yeah. But there are other people within the system that are quite credible that you can discuss with. Maybe they have had prior managerial positions that have helped them build their muscle in that area that you can talk to, and they can help you find solution. Of course, the HR manager will be involved. There's no panel or discussion around employee performance that the HR manager isn't involved in. That's another way. Another way is to, of course, go directly to the HR manager herself or himself to say, these are the issues I have. My manager is making life difficult for me. What are the things that I can do? Right. When you're going to talk to your HR manager, if you're talking to somebody else outside your manager, what you're telling the person should not be vindictive. It should not be, but I heard him on the phone yesterday talking to so and so. No, what you should be concerned about is yourself, right? If you're going there to talk about issues that you have, not going to report the HR manager, the line manager, you're going to talk about how your performance is being affected. It's probably affecting your family life or, your work-life balance, whatever the issues are. Then you put your case forward and you be careful with the choice of words, because some HR managers, like I said earlier, they can be CNN Africa. They move from there, go and meet the manager that you spoke to. Your staff, show him pepper in appraisals, give him 0. But I'm sure that there are systems in an ideal organization. There's systems to curb that.
That's a word, actually. Ideal organization.
There's systems to curb that. So yes, the HR manager takes information that you've given to him or her, filters and dissects. Okay, what is the reason? He probably knows that your manager has managerial defects. He probably doesn't know how to lead or manage people. So I know that in the person's training plan, I need to add something relating to emotional intelligence or confidentiality or something relating to managing people in the person's training plan. That's eventually when the person is having discussions with their superior. By the time it comes back to me, I know that this is something I need to put. That's one. And then two, I already know that this manager cannot, attend to the situation. If it's something that needs to be attended to immediately, of course, it's either I handle it or I call somebody in management. Okay, this person, so. These are the issues. Let's resolve it this way. And if it's something that we need to involve your manager, I will let you know that your manager is going to be in this in this situation. However, it's not something to indict you. It's something we're trying to look for a final solution. If after this conversation your manager is still behaving in a certain way, come back to me. That way I have given you rest. I've given you some assurance that what you're telling me I'm not using it against you, but I'm using it to support your growth within the organization.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic discussion so far. Thank you so much for this. Has been an amazing experience, and I'm glad and I'm sure you enjoyed it as well. On behalf of our sponsors, producer, and partners, we say a big thank you to you. See you next time.